Step into the Gardener's Lodge with me, Mykal Hoare. Let's explore the fascinating world of gardening, nature and ecology through conversations with experts, thought leaders, passionate enthusiasts and of course, some real good friends. All from the cosy heart of the lodge. Come on in. The Gardener's Lodge podcast is created on the traditional lands of the Darug and Gundungurra people in the Blue Mountains. We pay respect to all First Nations elders, past and present. Welcome to the show. My guest today is David Binch, Binchy's Garden on Instagram. Now, David is a fascinating character. He's been a horticulturalist for 20 years and he is hyper-focused on Grevilleas, which is exactly why I wanted to chat to him today. I think Grevilleas are some of the most iconic plants Australia has to offer. They're certainly up there with, your eucalypts or your Banksias or plants like that. When you think of Australian native plants, particularly Australian native flowers, you definitely think of Grevilleas. There is thousands of different varieties and David is an enthusiast and a collector. He is a part of a wide network of Grevillea grafters and Grevillea collectors. They swap and share plant material. He's been very generous with his time and he's going to depart as much of his Grevillea information onto us as possible. But first, you know what time it is. David will answer 6 rapid-fire questions so that you can get to know him just that little bit better. Are you ready? Okay,
Yep.
Here we go. So, favourite plant?
Grevillea Canning Classic.
What's your favourite way to connect with nature?
Bushwalking.
Most beautiful garden or landscape you've ever visited?
The Grampians National Park.
Yeah. Favourite garden tool?
Secateurs.
If you could be one, would you be a plant or an animal?
A native animal, a native Australian animal.
Nice. And then when you're looking for research, where do you go to find the most reliable sound information?
I check many sources, so I don't just check the one thing. So first I'll go to one of my tried and true books, but then there might be updated information on the internet. So then I'll search the internet as well, and I search a few different places to get that, and then I'll weigh it up, the answer, and pick it.
Tell me about how you fell in love with gardening and then how you actually kind of ended up with a career in horticulture.
It was a bit of an interesting way that I sort of fell into horticulture. I used to run mum and dad's general store at Smith's Beach on Phillip Island. So I used to ride my bike down to the shop to go to work every day. I used to see this older fella out in his garden. He had a grey beard and he was always out the front and we'd always, sing out, "How you going, mate?" and whatever as I was riding past. And it looked like he was turning over the soil with a shovel. And one day I just thought, stuff this. I stopped and I said, what are you up to, mate? What are you doing? And he said, "I'm just turning over the soil because it was heavy, a volcanic, red earthy clay, and he was constantly turning it over." Eventually I found out that he had a real obsessive compulsive disorder and a lot of anxiety. And I've got a lot of those type of traits. I've always dealt with a bit of anxiety and a bit of obsessive compulsion type things myself. So I just sort of seem to connect with people like that. So anyway, we stopped and he showed me around his garden. And at this stage, I wasn't into horticulture or plants or anything. And he was just a really friendly bloke. I was about 24, 25, and he was about 50. One day, all of a sudden, he just dropped dead. He passed away.
Oh.
And it was like overnight, I became interested in plants.
Wow.
I felt as though I could feel his spirit there, urging me to plant all these Australian native plants, as many as I could, all of a sudden. Like, this is soon after this guy died. Yeah, it was something I couldn't control. So that's how I got into it. It's sort of a bit weird, but it's
It is an interesting story. I'll give you that. It's certainly one of the more unique kind of
Yeah.
uh, entries into gardening. But no, that's great. And then you turned it into a career.
For 5 years, I started to I started to try and propagate my own plants,
Okay.
and with not much luck. Working down the shop one day, we used to have this older fella. We started talking about plants, and he said, "What about grafting? Have you ever heard about grafting?" I said, "No. What the bloody hell's that?" All this, and I thought, "Geez, yeah, this sounds interesting." And he goes, "You should look that up and give it a try sometime." So then I used to go with him. We used to go to nurseries all over the place, and he wanted to fill his garden full of native plants. So we were going to big nursery sales. He had a six-wheel troopy. He was a real eccentric fella, and he used to run it on fish and chip oil, his car.
Oh, yeah.
So I'll never forget, we went to one of these nurseries. So he said, "I'll have all the Banksias, all the Grevilleas." So we've gone and loaded them up, and he had a big roof rack on the top of this troopy, and we're tying Banksias on top of the bloody roof, and yeah, just going crazy with plants. It was pretty cool. And so, yeah, so then I helped him do a bit of planting at his place. But the obsession just kept growing and growing. So then I got a hold of. I bought the Grevillea books written by Neil Marriott and Peter Oldie. They got some grafting information in there, and I thought I want to give this grafting a bit of a go. Everyone I tried to ask people from nurseries who I knew, and they wouldn't tell me anything about it. Yeah, so it was like a real kept secret. So I couldn't find
Yeah.
much information. I thought this really sucks, you know. And I don't stop. I don't stop it until I get what I want. Sometimes with this type of thing, and I wanted I wanted this information, and I was going to go to all lengths to get it. I subscribed to the Burke's Backyard magazine at the time, and I also thought, bugger this, I'm going to email him because he was one of the pioneers in Australia with grafting Grevilleas. 6 weeks later, I received an email, and I thought, what's this? And I opened it up, and it was a full detailed letter from him, and he said, he told me everything I needed to know, like who to go and see to find out some more information,
Oh, great.
what type of grafts, what time of year to do it, fertilizers to use to help pump the rootstock up to get it to grow faster, full of
Fantastic.
information. And that's when I started to have a little bit of success. I was very thankful for that. So my first graft was a approach graft. So it's where at the time I'd grown a Grevillea robusta. I grew one up about, I don't know, 2 foot high. And I remember I had a Grevillea bronze rambler. You know how it's a prostrate plant with the branches
Yeah.
spreading out. And
Like a
I had
ground
like
cover.
this I had like this retaining wall at the back of my house and a raised up area. And I put the bronze rambler in the pot on the top part of the raised area, and I had the 2 foot long rootstock of the robusta down below, and I put a little slit in each. Took a little slither of bark off the robusta and a little slither of bark off the inside of the branch of the Grevillea bronze rambler, connected them together where the both wounds are, and then taped them up with parafilm tape. And from what he told me, he said it can take anywhere from 6 weeks to 3 months to heal. Anyway, sure enough, a couple of months went by, and I noticed the branches really starting to grow on top. And so I cut a bit of the tape, and I thought, I could see it all callousing. So it was all callousing around the wound. And so I cut it off, and there you go. There was me first little mini standard.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so
How
I
good.
had
It's
that was
always
like,
amazing when you get that first kind of garden success and you just kind of, There's a few things in times in my life when things like that have happened, and you just go, "This is why I do it." This is
Yeah.
that's the kind of the magic feeling that you feel. You feel almost like powerful.
Yeah. It's like it gives you an adrenaline rush almost, doesn't it?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Like a bit of a
Exactly.
I want more of this,
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just a plant, and we're that excited about it. Like that, it's
Gotcha.
some people might think, oh, that's boring, but it's not to us.
Not to us, not to us, and probably not to the people listening either. So that's
No, definitely not.
so let's dive deep into Grevilleas then. Grevilleas are easily one of the most recognizable Aussie native plants. What do you think makes them so iconic?
All right. The different shapes and colours of the flowers. So you've got your classic Grevillea toothbrush type flower. Large flowers of your Grevillea Moonlight and your Grevillea Superb and Robin Gordon. They've got that unique sort of cylinder sort of shape.
Almost like a cylinder hairbrush kind of thing.
Yeah, like the hairbrush. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Keep with the bathroom
So,
theme.
yeah. It's like you've got Grevillea robusta, which can grow 30 metres high or however
Yeah,
large it can
yeah,
grow.
huge.
And then you've got a little tiny little suckering plant that grows along the ground. Flowers can be very different from each other. You've got little spider flowers, you've got your toothbrush shape, you've got conical, round.
I'd say that it's definitely a Grevillea for every situation in Australia. Every different climate has a Grevillea, so I think that's probably why they're so kind of prolifically known, I guess. Um, how many different species are there?
It's recorded 360, but the list keeps just growing because they keep discovering new species all the time.
I bet, yeah.
Yeah, which is good, and they keep changing the names and all
Yeah.
sorts of things. But
Well, that's the problem.
yeah, there's
Well, not problem, but the DNA testing of everything is kind of just blowing everything out of the water that we once knew about plants, and things are getting reclassified. And
yeah.
hey, if you like native plants as much as I do, I have a special treat for you. I've created a free Australian native garden design or planting palette. What it is a collection of beautiful Australian native plants that are very adaptable to all different climates within Australia. So if you're stuck with what to plant in your native garden, download your free Australian native garden design. The free download also comes with a bunch of extra information on the steps you'll need to make it flourish. If that sounds like something that you'd like to take advantage of, the link to the free download is in the show notes below this episode. Check it out. So you actually collect rare Grevilleas, and your garden's bloody amazing.
Oh, thanks, mate.
Fantastic. But so yeah, you're down on the southeast coast of Victoria there.
Yep.
And in your garden is full of rare, wonderful Grevilleas. How many Grevilleas do you actually have in your collection?
Well, I've lost count now. So last I was up around 200, right?
Wow.
Give or take a few, but I've gained a heap more out there now this season. Or I don't know, maybe another 10 or 20 maybe this season. I've been grafting some. I've been sent some material from botanic gardens in New South Wales. Yeah, I've had friends send me plants in the mail. We get plants sent. I get plants sent to me in the mail, and I send them. So we share and share alike. So I'll send a parcel of cutting material to someone. They send one back, and then we propagate those plants. So yeah, so I've gained a few this season.
Could you tell us about the diversity of the Grevillea genus? They're found all over Australia. They grow in a million different climatic conditions.
Yep.
But yeah, tell us a little bit about that diversity.
Well, they can be found on the top of Mount William in the Grampians. It gets minus 10 degrees, and the Grevilleas get covered by snow. And they can be found in the arid areas in Western Australia, in the desert, in 40-degree heat day in, day out with poor soil conditions. They grow right near the beach, so they get in some areas, so they get spray drift from the ocean. Yeah, they can really adapt in many different conditions. You know, you've got your large tropical species, and then you've got your little tiny little shrubs. Yeah, there's a wide range of diversity and growth habits.
You know, if you've got a spot in your garden, there's a Grevillea you can fill it with for sure.
Yeah.
My favourite is Grevillea acanthifolia,
Oh,
which is actually a
Cantifolia.
bog plant.
Yeah.
We have in the mountains, so I'm in the Blue Mountains, so we have, like, hanging swamps.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like these, like, really wet kind of areas that, sort of like water collects and filters through before it kind of ends up off the cliffs and stuff here.
Yep.
Um, it's one of the plants that kind of sits in the margins of that, and it's a deadly though. It's got the sharpest leaves ever. You
Yep.
stick you know, you try and clean up some leaves from underneath it, and you just gets drives straight into your skin. It
Oh,
has the
yeah.
most beautiful flower.
I know a Cantifolia. It's a beautiful plant.
Do you grow it?
No, I actually don't think I've had it, but they do a lot of hybrids from that plant. They
Yeah.
make a lot of hybrids from it.
Due to all these different climatic conditions that they can live in, what are some of the, like, more interesting adaptations that Grevilleas have made to the Australian environment?
They've learnt to adapt to really, really dry conditions where they get drought for months on end, and like I've seen plants that almost look like they're dead, and then it comes back around to spring, and they somehow manage to come back to life, and then you've got like what you were saying with the acanthofolia, uh, enjoying a little bit of wet feet. But I bet you, did it have a bit of drainage? Was that water draining off, or was it?
Yeah, for sure, yeah. And, I can grow it in drier spots. It just prefers, like, a little bit more moisture through the soil than
Yep,
I'd say your average, You kind of even look at the leaves and whatnot, and you see all the different variations in the leaves. Some of them are quite thick and dense. Some are very, like, light and
with Grevilleas, that's a huge feature. Well, to me and to most of us who are into Grevilleas, is the foliage, the different leaf shapes. It's amazing the foliage colour. And see, as you're saying there, these plants have adapted along with the wildlife, so the wildlife can hide in the prickly foliage.
kind of evolved with each other. They
Yeah,
use it for
evolved. That's the
shelter
word I was
and
looking for. Yeah.
yeah, well, actually, on that note, how do Grevilleas interact with native wildlife like birds, bees, and other pollinators?
Australian native birds are the main pollinators of Grevilleas. So the
Okay.
insects do a bit and whatnot, but the birds, they can get their beaks right into the little tube of the flower, and they even end up with a bit of pollen just up above their beak, and then they carry it over so they get it from, say, the male, they carry it over to the female part of the next flower, and then they stick their nose in there, and there you go. But a lot of the flowers, once again, birds and so these plants evolve with each other, and the birds choose the pinks and red and yellow color flowers. So there's more of these type of flower colors with the Grevilleas, and the birds are most partial to those colors. Where the insects, the bees and insects prefer the white flower Grevilleas, because the white flower Grevilleas send off a certain an odor to attract the insects, and the birds aren't interested in those white flowers.
Oh, that's
That's
interesting.
interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's very interesting. So I guess the birds that we'd be talking about would have kind of those, like, long, slender beaks, like your spinebills or something
Yep.
like that. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, and
Oh.
so their beaks are even, so they're all adapted, so they can get inside those little flowers and do their job.
Are Grevilleas self-fertile then? Meaning, do they have both the male and the female parts on the flower?
Yes, they do. They have both male and female parts to the flowers. Yes.
The pollinators that do come have much greater kind of chance to pollinate the flower itself, while they're in there.
Yeah, Yeah, that's right. And they help create a lot of interesting hybrids as well in that
Of
way. Yeah,
course.
yeah.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think you've even created some hybrids of your own, haven't you?
Yeah, I've got one out there that was a bit of a fluke. Yeah,
Oh, so it was
yeah.
just an accident?
Well, it was sort of an intended accident. So I
Yeah.
had when we were moving house, I had two Grevilleas that I was taking with me because so I had them growing in pots beside each other. So one was Grevillea superba, and the other one was Grevillea oncogoini, and they were both roughly a foot and a half high, similar width, everything, nice plants, and they both flowered at the same time. So I had these plants, so I pushed them right up against the pots, right up against, so the foliage was all intertwined and the flowers were all next to each other. And I'd even go out there and rub the flowers together, and the birds and the bees were getting around them and that too. And I collected. They finished flowering. I collected seeds off one of the plants and threw them in a pot, grew them. So I lost quite a few, but one was a lot stronger than the rest, one of the little seedlings. So I kept that seedling and grew it up a bit more. Then I grafted it onto Grevillea robusta. So then
Oh,
I didn't think much more of it after that. Years later, planted it out in my garden here where I am. My friend come over and he said, "What's that?" He said, "That's not a Superba." And I said, "Yeah, it's." Oh no, hang on. It's the. I said it's the. I grew this one from seed, and both plants were totally different. So the flowers were shorter and fatter on my plant, where they were longer and spread out and a paler colour. I've checked it on this oncogoini that I've got, and um, it's got similar features to that plant. So we've married it up and figured out it's a hybrid. So yeah,
fantastic.
and then my
Oh,
first
good.
hybrid I've created. I've grown
Yeah.
a few others,
Mm.
but they just haven't performed that well. To have a hybrid that you've got to have it perform well. So if you ever want to put it in the nursery trade one day, um,
Yeah, well, I
and
mean,
apparently
I'm
I've
always amazed by plant breeders and how they kind of like so much work, just to get
yeah
the perfect kind of crossover and
yeah sometimes you can grow 200 plants and you'd have to grow each one until they flower, and they usually some people wait 7 years and see how that plant performs before you can say that it's a good hybrid. That's
good sturdy
how
thing ready for
yeah
sale
that
or whatever,
flat.
yeah.
And another one they say these days is pretty much got a flower for most of the year, which my one out there might flower for 3 or 4 months of the year.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I find a plant
Yeah.
might get boring if it flowers all year round anyway.
Well, that's all right, yeah.
Maybe.
You wanna enjoy it when it's there, you want the surprise
Yeah,
when
you
it
want to
pops
wait
up.
for the bloom. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Let's talk about just growing grevilleas generally. What are some tips you could give to people who are looking to grow grevilleas in their garden?
All right. The first would be to pick grevilleas that are growing. I'd look in other people's gardens and look what your local nursery are selling and find out what the local nursery people recommend. So then I always like to have raised garden beds for starters. No matter what type of soil, I like to have really good raised garden beds.
Do you mean like
So
mounded, not like kind of your
yeah,
raised veggie beds? It's 'cause it's like mounded up.
mounded,
Yeah.
mounded up. Yeah, yeah.
So
Because
that'd be for sort of
Grevillea,
drainage and
yeah, most Grevilleas love good drainage.
yeah.
Even the ones that enjoy a bit of moisture, they love good drainage. But they like a bit of, so like a sandy loam type of soil. They don't mind a bit of clay, but they don't. The clay can get if clay gets really wet and gluggy, they don't like that so much. But mounding the soil, raising the soil up, helps to combat a bit of that sort of problem. But then they don't like it to be too sandy either, because then it drains too much. So they're pretty similar really, to a lot of other Australian native plants that.
I guess, the beauty of growing natives is you don't have to go and change heaps of your soil over generally. You just have to pick the
No,
right plant for the right spot. And, the soil is generally what it wants to grow in, particularly if you're growing endemic plants and the things that are local to your area.
another big one is full sun for Grevilleas. Full sun position. That's it.
Yep.
That's raised bed, full sun.
Do you do much formative pruning? So, like, when they're young plants, do you kind of try and get the shape nice and full?
Like to prune them as they grow, and this helps. So I like to prune and shape the Grevillea up so it's nice and strong. So it not only creates a nice shape, but it's nice and strong in the windy conditions
Mm.
because they can get
Nice dense
blown over.
foliage.
Yeah, yeah, and sort of train them up, and so they grow into a nice plant. I don't like them being turned into a square, a ball, or a circle, or whatever you want to call it. When people get the hedge trimmer out and
Toe parade or
toper
whatever.
it, yeah, I see. I don't like pruning them with hedge trimmers and that either. That's each to their own. And I've seen some people do it at some big places where they've got a lot of grevilleas and it seems to work fine. But I just see that the hedge trimmers, the cuts aren't clean, and it can really promote pests and disease.
That leads me on to my next question is, what are some prevalent pests and diseases that you've seen kind of affecting your grevilleas or...
Well, the main one that I get here sometimes is the borers, Grevillea borer. They bore into the trunk of the plant and kill the plant pretty quickly. There's not much you can do about it once they reckon you can um, spray a bit of chemical on there and patch the holes and all this, but I've had it kill some really rare plants.
Oh, no.
And another one we get here, sometimes with some of the, like your moonlights or your Grevillea honey gems, um, some of the desert Grevilleas, Grevillea areostachia, Grevillea excelsior, Grevillea junkifolia, you get sooty mould on
Yep.
there, like a black sooty mould. Um, Once again, you've just got to make sure it's got enough airflow around the plant and that it's in a well-drained position when it's planted, to help prevent the problem. I don't like spraying chemicals one little bit, really.
No.
Yeah.
No, me either. I completely
No.
organically garden. I think a lot of the time too, I mean, you're growing obviously things from all over the country as well, so they're potentially not growing in their kind of home range where they're endemic to, so they might end up being more susceptible to certain pests and diseases that are in your area that they're not used to from where they grow. So
Yep.
they're part of the Proteaceae family, which are notoriously known for being like phosphorus sensitive.
Yep.
That's like the same, so they're in the same family as like Banksias, Hakeas,
Yep.
Waratahs, pretty vast family, but they're phosphorus sensitive.
Very.
So if you are going to fertilize, you need to fertilize with an Australian native specific fertilizer.
I just use those the Australian native slow release
Yes.
fertilizer. Yeah, I just sprinkle that around the garden. Once again, it's another thing I don't like using too much of that type of thing, but
That's
I
it.
do sprinkle some of that around the garden occasionally, and I use a product called Power Feed.
Yep.
That's got some good nutrients and stuff and feed in there to give them a bit of a boost. And I use a bit of seaweed solution whenever I'm potting up or a plant's got a bit of shock. I'll give them a bit of a hit with the sea soil, and that can perk them up. But going
Nice.
back to what you were saying before about the Proteaceae family, I was told by one of my Grevillea expert friends they're even considering merging Hakeas into and calling them Grevilleas because they're that closely
Really?
related. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
I had to deep dive into the research on this one because this kind of blew my mind. but it's quite complex. So now these plants were considered separate for over 200 years. And their biggest difference really is that Hakeas have a tough woody seed that is dispersed by fire. Grevilleas, on the other hand, have thin, leathery pods that just release their seed. That description worked fine until DNA testing has come along and shaken things up. Turns out Hakea isn't its own thing at all. Genetically speaking, it's actually a sub-branch of Grevillea. So what do we do about that? This mostly concerns the names, which is pretty important. But there's two options. Option one, merge Hakea into Grevillea and call everything Hakea. That's the way taxonomy works. Hakeas were named first, so Grevillea should be scooped up into the Hakea genus. Option two, split Grevillea into a smaller, more manageable new genre while keeping Hakea as it is. Australian botanists were working towards the second, much less disruptive option until in 2018 when a group of European botanists decided to jump the gun. Without consulting their Aussie counterparts, they went ahead and renamed everything Hakea in a self-published volume. Yeah, as you can imagine, people weren't happy. The result? A standoff. No Australian herbaria or plant database has accepted the change, and the debate is still unresolved. But here's the takeaway. Expect some name changes soon. Scientists are working towards a stable solution that respects the history and evolutionary relationship of these plants. So, if you're a plant nerd, keep an eye out.
They keep changing the names and doing all this sort of thing just to confuse us, I reckon.
Oh, you can't keep up, can you?
No.
And all of us plebs just have to, you know, tread water trying to catch up, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
So, what are the most common challenges that you've found when it comes to growing grevilleas?
I graft the Grevilleas to get around the challenges. So
Yeah.
the weather conditions down here in Victoria, if some of the species that are brought in from Western Australia, and you get a wet winter down here in Victoria, if the Grevillea is not grafted, it's probably not going to have much joy, you know. But if you graft it, it usually helps get around any of those issues.
Dive deep into the grafting then, because this is, I think, your specialty. Um, so,
Yeah,
effectively, the rootstock that you're using, the purpose of grafting is that you use a rootstock that works well in your area. So, you're using Robusta, which is the southern silky oak, I think. Um,
yeah,
and that it kind of grows, is a really sturdy plant, grows really well, and then you're able to bring in and graft onto the top of that rootstock
yep.
plants that you wouldn't regularly be able to grow in your area. That's right.
Spot on, spot on. You can pretty much grow Grevillea robusta. It's grown all over the world for many, many different uses because it's such a strong and robust plant, as the name suggests, and
Yeah.
it tolerates a wide range of soil conditions, and it's just really strong. You know, even though it's a tropical or subtropical species, it's just got such a strong, adaptable root system. It can be grown like many places around the world. You know, that's why we use it.
With grafting, there's a few different techniques that you can do. What have you found is the most successful when it comes to grevilleas?
Before I started off with the approach graft and was having some good luck with that, but it was taking too long, a bit of an awkward graft to do. I roughly did that graft for probably 5 years until I met a fella named Brian Weir. He was doing a saddle graft and a top wedge graft he was using, and he was doing a lot of standards, Grevillea standards. So it's where you
Mhm.
grow a 6 foot high Grevillea robusta and then you graft, say, a weeping. Anyway, yeah, he was doing this type of saddle graft for the standards and a top wedge for the lower grafts, so for the small grafts. And I started practicing some of his methods. A lot of his sort of methods and stuff. Some of the ideas came. I think Richard Tompkins is a good friend of mine, and one of the longest and best grafters in Australia as well. He's been doing it for around 40 years.
Wow.
The side saddle graft is one of the grafts that he mainly uses, and then introduced us further on to other fellow and lady grafters all over the place, and it's
So you've
sort of
really
like
built a
a
big community.
yeah. So we're all as mad as one another about the grafting, and I've been to some amazing gardens and of grafters who are mad Grevillea collectors all over the place. We share and share alike. It's really cool.
Share the plants, share the knowledge.
Yeah,
Uh,
because the whole idea behind it is that um, if they ever become extinct in the wild, that we've got them growing here in our garden, and that you could always give something back, so you can give some material back.
to
Um,
repopulate native populations if anything
yeah,
ever kind of goes wrong with them. What are some lesser known or rare Grevilleas in your collection or not in your collection that deserve a little more attention? I know a lot of them maybe don't have the most amazing flowers in the world, but what are some of your favorites?
well, they might not be to everyone's liking or to everyone's like. They may not be the perfect garden plant for someone else, but I've got one out there that's Grevillea batrachioides, and it's from a small mountain in Western Australia. There's only a handful of them left in this area, and it's got really coppery orangish flowers. It's got a
Mm,
silverish foliage with red new growth at the tips. It has like a cascading type habit, highly
beautiful.
endangered. It needs an interstock when grafted, so that's another piece of material you need to put in between the top part of the plant and the robusta rootstock when you're grafting it. So it's tricky to graft.
Okay.
Um,
What's the purpose of that?
so compatibility problems. So
Yep.
yeah, some species don't like to go on straight on top of Grevillea robusta, so you've got to put another hybrid Grevillea, usually a hybrid, in between because they seem to. Yeah, so this Grevillea anyway, I only know that. So I've got this plant. My friend Brian has got it, and I only know. And Neil Marriott's got it, and they're the only three. We're the only three people that I know of who have got that plant. Um,
It's pretty
yeah,
important work.
yeah, it is.
So you opened your garden with Open Gardens Victoria. Tell me about how you found hosting an open garden. I would find it so daunting.
Well, daunting's the right word, mate.
Yeah.
I probably 6 months before I had the opening, and I said, yeah, why not? I'll do that. Yeah, I was, pretty brave. And then I thought the reality hit. Whoa,
What have I
all the
done?
work I've got to. What have I done? How am I going to prepare for this? I just looked
Yeah.
around. I thought, gee, there's no way I'm going to have all this ready. I've got so much work to do. So then for that 6 months, I worked my butt off out in that garden. I had everything because I'm a obsessive compulsive. Everything had to be perfect. I had almost 250 people through that weekend.
Whoa.
I did. The Open Gardens Victoria were so supportive all the way through that 6 months. I'd get emails. They'd ring me. I
Oh,
did a
fantastic.
radio. I did a radio. They organised a radio interview. The day came around, and I'm like, here it is. This is a day the weekend I've been waiting for a long, long time. So I thought every half an hour or every hour, I'll just say, all right, everyone, come over here. I'm doing a tour of the garden. And so that's what I did the whole weekend. And I did grafting demonstrations. I showed why we graft. But the
Bloody hell, you
people
must
were
have been
just,
exhausted.
I was absolutely cactus, mate. Yeah, but I had some really nice walks with people through the garden, and it really brought out some great personalities in people that were just so interested in these plants.
Having seen your garden online, it's phenomenal. Speaking of seeing your garden online, you actually prolifically post on Instagram and you've started doing YouTube. Just as, opening your garden is kind of a daunting process, so is posting online and opening yourself up to that. What was your intention behind starting to post to social media?
All right, well, roughly just over a year and a half ago, I started that, and
Is that it?
yeah, my wife said to me, start sharing some of your knowledge about these plants. Why don't you sort of put yourself and your garden on the map, sort of thing?
Mm.
And I thought, all right, well, how the hell am I going to do that? She said, well, start on bloody social media. And I said, oh, I can't stand social media. I'm not big on it. And she said, no, look, just do something. So I started it all just started evolving, and it was just, and then it became, because I'm a bit obsessive compulsive, I thought, all right, I've got to do something every day, and so I did for a long, long time, and
Yeah.
just kept putting something, and nothing's pre-planned. It all just, like, all of a sudden I'll just think of an idea and I'll be like, right, I'm going out to do that, and we'll
Get the
see how
camera.
it goes. Give me the camera, and at the first I was like, yeah, and this plant is whatever, and then now I don't care who's watching and whatever. I don't even think about the camera in my face now. I just go, I'm happy for the camera to be on me, and I'm happy to explain to people and teach people things. It's all about teaching people how to do things, showing them how rare these plants and how endangered they are, and how
Mm.
important it is that people plant Australian native plants in their gardens for our local wildlife, creating habitat, better for our environment, just showcasing how good it can be.
I think the thing too with you and your videos is you're so relatable. You're so down to earth, easygoing that it's very approachable. It's content that
Oh,
is joyous to watch.
oh, thanks, mate.
Where can people find you on Instagram?
My Instagram is just Binchy's Garden. So it's just B for ball, INCHYS, lower score, garden. Yeah,
Perfect. Anyways,
yeah.
thank you very much for being on the show today. I really appreciate it. It's been a great chat.
Thanks for having me, mate.
Thank you so much for joining me today. If you like the show, don't forget to hit the follow or subscribe button. Tell a friend or two, or maybe even give the show a 5-star rating and a review. If you want more Gardeners Lodge content, you can find our website, our Instagram and our TikTok in the show notes below this episode. The Gardeners Lodge podcast is a growing media production.